Hello and welcome to a very special podcast. Today we're talking about The Mandalorian, Disney Plus's spearhead show that you can watch on their brand new streaming service. I am the Knight of Beskar, Mediocrity 4.
I am excited to talk about good Star Wars. I am Dude.
And I am Baby Yoda looking for his next hit of ketamine. I am Coop.
Taking all bets on how many fucking ketamine jokes we're gonna have in this podcast.
So fucking many, guys. I having actually been on ketamine, I can say that I understand Baby Yoda's craving for it, because I crave for it sometimes too. Sometimes you just need to sleep at night.
So, just for a synopsis here, The Mandalorian, it takes place sometime after Return of the Jedi, long enough to where the Empire is in ruins, but not long enough to where people know about Luke Skywalker across the galaxy, and the Empire does still have remnants, which technically we know they have remnants all the way up to like 30-something years after Return of the Jedi, but we're not talking about the First Order. This is the true Empire as we see them in the original trilogy. And we follow a Mandalorian bounty hunter whose name it honestly doesn't matter. We're all just going to call him the Mandalorian throughout this podcast anyway, or Mando for short, as Carl Weathers does. Because Carl Weathers is in this and he is great.
His name is Din Djarin.
Din Djarin.
Yeah. But yeah, Mando is better anyway.
Yeah. And so while on a mission, and this is basically the plot of the first episode, he gets assigned to a bounty mission. He's supposed to bring this target in alive. Turns out that this target is a baby in quotes, because it's actually 50 years old. We'll get on that later. But it's from Yoda species, so everyone just called him Baby Yoda.
Hey, a baby is a baby, baby. That's how it do.
Yeah. And
don't
so,
matter if it's 50 years old or 5 seconds old.
Don't take that out of context, people watching this.
Take it out of context as you want, people watching this. I'm the one that said it, and I'm the one who guarantees your rights to take what I say out of context.
God damn it. So, because Mando is like, fuck droids, but more importantly, fuck the Empire, he decides to take Baby Yoda under his wing, and they go on a series of wacky adventures together, all the way up until like the last 2 episodes when they have to go back to the bounty hunter world and kick some Empire ass together.
Yep.
Along with Carl Weathers and some rebel chick, and a droid, and Nick Nolte
Cara
as an
Dune,
alien.
right? Isn't her name Cara Dune?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to get to that point, we got to start all the way back at the beginning. Episode 1.
The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Fuck
No.
We already talked about that crap.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Yeah. No. Episode 1 of The Mandalorian is a rather interesting and reasonable episode to start things off with. It literally just introduces our main character. Who is he? What is his job? How does he do it? And sparks off the whole Baby Yoda thing. Mandalorian, like literally first scene of the first episode is literally some dudes chatting it up. One guy's is about to be killed by a bunch of other dudes because he lost a bet or some shit. I can't quite remember, but he's an alien guy, a blue alien guy who's about to get his shit blasted in when suddenly Mando pops in the bar, fucking goes up to him, fucking blasts the guys that were about to blast him. Then he's like, "Oh man, you saved me. Can I buy you a drink?" Well, unfortunately, Mando places his holographic bounty poster on the table in front of him and is like, "Come with my ass or your ass gets blasted too." In which case he's
I can bring you in hot or cold.
Yeah, I like the way I said it better, but even so, it's pretty cool the way Mando said it.
Yeah. That's a good place to any to just kind of praise Pedro Pascal as
Because I was gonna say
Mando.
we really don't need to summarize like we do in the normal
Yeah,
Actually, I actually don't like how much we summarize in the podcast in our other podcasts in the first place, because it's, if you haven't watched this, then why are you listening? You know what I mean? You're listening to this because you've seen it and you want to hear what we think about it. So
yes.
yeah, first thing to do, praise Pedro Pascal. He does a very good job. If you want to talk about that, I also just want to talk about the style of the show that this sets off. But you can talk about the acting first.
They get a lot of pathos out of him, despite the fact that he supposedly never takes off his helmet. He does at the very end, but that's a different
the fact that if you watch the Clone Wars, they take off their the Mandalorians take off their helmets.
Okay. I will.
Sabine Wren always has her helmet off in fucking Rebels.
I will say this: if they come out and say that this is not part of the Mandalorian way and merely a custom of this particular Mandalorian clan, I will, from an EU and canon perspective, be okay with it.
I would too, because if this is my head canon, then would be that they did it out of like necessity, based off of like how much it sucks to be them now, and it didn't used to be as bad. So that's why
so it's kind of like in actual world history with the Jews, because apparently, and I think this was stated in Rebels, but I don't know because I haven't really watched all of Rebels. I've only seen the Darth Maul episodes because he's the only one I care about.
I watched the whole thing.
That the Empire like cracked Mandalore in half or something. Like they fucked up that planet and scattered the residents across the galaxy. And so
Mandalore's interesting because they fucked themselves up for years, and that's why if you in Clone Wars it's basically become a desert planet with just dome cities, because they've fucking destroyed their own planet from fighting so much, which is a little extreme, but I get the point. And then after the Empire takes over, then they just make it even worse.
If you go to, honestly, the Mandalorians are, in that respect, kind of a lot like the Krogans from Mass Effect in a way. But I also didn't dig that they didn't, instead of being like the Krogans where they were like, we're going to figure out how to make our fucking shit that nuked us cool, rather than going over to some totally pacifistic shit. That was kind of the shit that I didn't like about them during the Clone Wars. But this ain't about.
Yeah,
and
maybe
honestly, they kind of ignored that a little bit.
And maybe they're okay. I'm gonna make
I think there's a difference between the Mandalore that becomes Mandalore after like Duchess Satine takes over, and Mandalorian warriors.
Well, I think much like I'm beating around the bush because there's a lot of memes about it, but the Jews, how there's a difference between the Jewish people and the Jewish religion. The Mandalorians here are the Mandalorian like religion, whereas the Mandalorians before, they might have had aspects of the religion, but they weren't fully devout followers. They were just the people of Mandalore.
Well, I think we should probably just get into the ultimate debacle that the Clone Wars caused with the Mandalorian lore, which was precisely what they decided to do with it. What is no longer canon is the thing that specifically caused the Mandalorian planet to become a desert with domes on it. The Jedi nuked it. That was EU, though. We don't know what caused it now.
No, we do know. They said they fought too much. They destroyed themselves. That's what.
They also do pay lip service in the season finale to the Mandalorian Wars, which are, they are canon again. There were a lot of wars between the Mandalorians and the Jedi.
And we're going to get some of that in the final season of Clone Wars, which we will podcast as well when that comes out.
Do either of you know if the Mandalorian Civil War, which was the original cause behind the Duchess Satine's takeover and the pacifist Mandalorians, actually happened in canon right now?
I don't know.
Nothing that I've watched that's canon has confirmed that. No.
That's
because I've watched all of Clone Wars and I've watched all of Rebels and I've watched, I think, all the movies now, so I don't know. I haven't seen it.
If they want to say that the desertification of Mandalore fighting amongst the Mandalorians, then I'm assuming they would.
Yeah.
Then I'm assuming that would be it. And I'm assuming they would have the Death Watch fight the true Mandalorians. And I'm assuming then that technically speaking, Jango Fett and Boba Fett are the last of the true Mandalorians in that case. But if it is not yet totally canon.
No, that's not true because Sabine Wren is still alive at the end of is still alive at the end of
Sabine Wren and her clan were part of Pre Vizsla's overall house, though. They were actually with the Death Watch. They were not of the true Mandalorians that Jango and Boba were. At least by EU standards.
Oh, well, we're not going by EU standards. I'm pretty sure by canon standards, they were actually had a clan and house. So they were actually Mandalorian.
Yeah, their house was House Vizsla.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Either way, okay, let's talk about like the actual show then, because you want to talk about the acting, right?
because Coop is or was echoing a little bit. Okay, yeah, he's echoing a little bit.
Sorry about that. I'm on push to talk though, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Okay. So the performances in this are very solid, and I really wanted to highlight Pedro Pascal in particular because of how little of his face we actually see. And so a lot of it is his body language, and a lot of it's the cinematography, directing, and the score. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of the same elements that we praised in Return of the Jedi, in particular when it came to portraying Darth Vader and his pathos, and how they really didn't need to edit in the no when he's throwing the Emperor over that balcony, because that scene was just fine without it. And there's a lot of that going on with The Mandalorian, but I also want to, point out other people, like you had Taika Waititi as IG-11, getting a lot of kind of comedic relief out of a cold-blooded assassin droid. Nick Nolte turns in... for anyone else, what would be a career-defining role as the Ugnaught, Quill.
Yeah.
I have spoken.
The second which if it wasn't for Baby Yoda, would be the most memed thing from this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just such a meme-worthy line, because it's like,
it is.
Just put a statement on the internet and then put him saying "I have spoken," and your argument is invalid.
This Is the Way is also quite good at that.
Yes, This Is the Way.
They know how to meme. They know what they're doing with this shit.
They've got some solid fucking memes that come out of this. The Baby Yoda memes, dislike them as much as you might because you're a fucking hipster who can't get down with a normie meme. It's a normie meme. Like, just because it's normie don't mean it ain't funny. Okay, that's the fucking way it is.
Yeah.
I love the Baby Yoda memes because Baby Yoda loves ketamine.
So the thing that caught me right away about this show is that, here's like Star Wars, original Star Wars is a Western. We know that. It's a Western in space. That's partly why
space Western, so to speak.
That's why people blame Star Wars for killing the Western genres, because, well, they just put it in a more exciting and a new setting. They put it in space, made sci-fi Westerns. That's what most space movies are, which is fine because I like them too. And I also like Westerns. I've watched a lot of Westerns. That's probably the movie besides animation I've watched the most of. I took a class on Westerns in college. I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm saying I love them. And this definitely feels like if Star Wars is a Western, this is a spaghetti Western. This is like even more, not necessarily that spaghetti Westerns are more of a Western, but the Westernness of this show is much more overt than regular Star Wars is. And this is definitely specific, partly just because it feels like a specific genre. Whereas original Star Wars is just the hero's journey, kind of a Western. This is a spaghetti Western. And it's
the spaghetti Western is a lone wanderer story at the end of the day. That's what it is.
Essentially, and very quiet, not a lot of dialogue, a lot of just, let the shots and the cinematography do the story for you, and the actors' expressions and their actions be the be the impetus for everything, not necessarily not as much dialogue, and that's what this does. That's why I loved seeing that opening scene. I love Pedro Pascal's performance. You get a lot of he has a lot of presence. It's not just the armor. He does a good job showing presence without speak. He doesn't have to speak too much, and it makes when he does speak a little bit more impactful, especially in the beginning episodes. I really like that. The show's not perfect. I would say it's more of a Dollars trilogy than it is a Once Upon a Time in the West, because it's not that much of a masterpiece. And it's also not as extreme as Once Upon a Time in the West in terms of how long or how drawn out or how little dialogue there is. I've had one of the overarching complaints about the show is sometimes they actually have too much dialogue for a show that's supposed to be a spaghetti western at the beginning. They kind of get away from that in the middle.
Well, hold up. I can counter you on that a little bit, because it has a lot of dialogue from the side characters, which every spaghetti western has. All the side characters always talk a lot.
Not all of them, because like I said, the best one, Once Upon a Time in the West, does not.
Well, I'll have to fucking outlaw you on that, because the Outlaw Josie Wales is the best spaghetti western of all time, and I'll fucking fight you to the death on that one.
Have you watched both of them?
Yes, I have watched both.
And you prefer Outlaw Josie Wales? It's a good movie. Is that the one where goes to Mexico? Well, they're always in Mexico, but he goes like into like the church.
He goes.
No, that's Pale Rider.
Yeah, that's Pale Rider.
Outlaw Josie Wales is the one where he's like up in the mountains and shit the entire time.
No, that is not what the Outlaw Josie Wales is.
He's in the forest.
He's not in the forest either.
No, I know it's not a forest.
Have neither of you watched the Outlaw Josie Wales?
It's been a long time.
Dude, the Outlaw Josie Wales is about a previous member of the Confederate States of America, who I represent, being from Robert E. Lee's home state. He is actually I believe a Missouriite guerrilla who essentially denies the Union.
Oh wait, yeah. That's Outlaw Josie Wales, dude. That's not even a spaghetti western.
It's basically a spaghetti western. It's got Clint Eastwood in it, so it might as well be. And he acts the same way as he does in all the other fucking spaghettis.
Just because it's Clint Eastwood does not make a spaghetti western. It's Clint Eastwood directing the movie. It's a revisionist western, not a spaghetti western. It's a great movie. It's a revisionist western. It just like what's Unforgiven is directed and starring Clint Eastwood. That's not a fucking spaghetti western.
And here I am with High Plains Drifter.
He directs them the same damn way as the spaghetti westerns get directed. So who the fuck cares whether it's a spaghetti western or not? Shit.
The entire concept of genre breaks down once you get away from the binary tragedy and comedy. I'm just sitting here with High Plains Drifter as my favorite western, which is like nobody's favorite western.
Well, my favorite actual western is Rio Bravo. It's not even Once Upon a Time in the West. I just think that's the best spaghetti western.
Yeah.
Damn, anyway, if I have to think of what my favorite, like, just straight up western is, it's still the Outlaw Josie Wales. Fuck all y'all.
So, getting back on track with The Mandalorian. So, yeah, this does get pretty extreme with the Western, and sometimes it can lead to desert fatigue. They go to a lot of different planets throughout this series, and a lot of them are desert planets. Like, we have the main bounty hunter world, which I believe is like Nambia or something like that.
I don't remember. I believe it was something along those lines.
Then there's the planet from the second half of episode 1 and episode 2, where he finds Baby Yoda. That was also like a desert world. And
we basically you don't watch this for the settings. The settings, and it's a little bit of a shame, because that's one of the things I liked about the animated shows is you get all these really interesting worlds and it builds the universe. That's not what you get here. And I don't really mind too much, because of if that would risk them killing the vibe, basically, then I would rather them do it this way. But I do agree that the settings they kind of blend together for me.
Yeah, it's much more in line with the original trilogy, where you had desert planet, forest planet, swamp planet, snow planet, cloud planet, jungle planet.
It's got basically, well, honestly, it's even more limited than that. It's basically 3 settings. You got your small town where a shootout happens. You've got your desert planet where you're running across, and you've got your forest planet, which you're basically sitting in a small town shooting at other stuff from and also wandering through. That's like it, more or less. And yeah, I don't mind the settings because, like you said, the settings are not super important. It's what they're doing there that matters, and like what they're doing there is pretty damn exciting. Like I was never bored at any part of The Mandalorian. I
will get to that, but I'm almost not bored at all. There was one episode where I got bored.
Yeah,
just fucking hit it right now so we can get it off the deck.
Yeah.
This is where I can start getting into the directors then too, because the one episode that was trash was episode 4 chapter 4 Sanctuary, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. Why they chose Bryce Dallas Howard to direct an episode of The Mandalorian? Fuck me, I don't know.
Because she's Ron Howard's daughter, and Ron Howard is great.
Right. She didn't do a great job. It's weird that Jon Favreau was the one that wrote this and Dave Filoni didn't tell him to fuck off, because this is literally an episode of the Clone Wars.
Not only that, but it was an episode of the Clone Wars that was adapted from a Western, that was adapted from a samurai film that was one of George Lucas's key inspirations for making Star Wars. Like it starts with Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa was one of George Lucas's idols in film school, and he always found ways to pay homage to Kurosawa in all of his movies, not just Star Wars. And then, Seven Samurai got remade as a Western called The Magnificent Seven, and then Magnificent Seven was basically the spine,
Seven Samurai.
The spine of a Clone Wars episode that I believe was called Bounty Hunters, and it was one where Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka, they find this village that's being protected by bounty hunters who are protecting this village against pirates led by Hondo. It's the same episode where we get this venture
is no longer profitable.
Yes, it's the episode where we get that meme. It's a very famous episode, and it had a sombrero guy who was like my favorite extra character.
Enbo.
Yeah, Enbo. I was just called him sombrero guy when I was taking notes on Clone Wars.
I watched an episode not too long ago because I'm binging Clone Wars to get ready for our Clone Wars podcast for the new Clone Wars season.
I mean, you can kind of forgive that though. The thing with Akira Kurosawa is that not only did he influence the Western genre, he was influenced by it. His entire use of the Aido style was based upon the quick draws of the Westerns that had been out at the time.
It wouldn't bother me so much if it wasn't for the fact that they literally made a canon Star Wars show episode just like this. That was what bothered me. All the other stuff, I understand why they would want to, but it's like, you guys literally did this in another show.
You can point out lots of stuff like that though. You could maybe say the final fight between Obi-Wan was a lot like an Akira Kurosawa movie.
Yeah, well,
but that's not what I'm complaining about.
Yeah,
Again, I'm not complaining about the Akira Kurosawa part. I'm complaining about the fact that they already did this episode better in another show.
In another, not just another show, but another Star Wars episode. And even if
that show, that's what I mean.
And even if that was,
it's another canon Star Wars show. That's why I'm bothering.
And even if that was, and even if that was the only problem, which it's not the only problem. Is the point, because that puts a barrier of entry where, like, okay, now you got to do something with that. You got to kind of take it to the next level. And what they do is, so there's this rebel like shock trooper chick,
Cara Dune.
Cara Dune, who with her bare ass hands is somehow able to slug it out with Mando wearing full fucking Beskar armor that is super resistant to like laser cannons and shit.
Guys, it's because she's a fucking tranny. That's why.
Okay,
I wouldn't be
I'm
surprised.
actually going to disagree with the media here and say I actually don't mind that, because throughout, one thing I like about this show is that throughout the entire show, we see that Mando's not that great of a fighter. Like, he's good. He's definitely better than most people, but he's not super overpowered. He can get beaten and he needs help.
I
like that about him, though.
Here's the thing about Mando, and it's the same thing about like normal combative elements, is that he fights dirty. He's taught to fight dirty. If you get him in a straight up fight, he's gonna lose. But if he finds some advantage, he'll kill your ass dead as hell. Yeah, and that's the way like a normal militarist is. Whereas his shock trooper opponent had some bulk on him and shit, even though, like, technically speaking, when she was aiming the blaster at his fucking head, one could say that the point blank range makes the Beskar armor not make that much of a, like, you could also say, oh, well, we've only ever seen the Beskar deflect blaster bolts while getting a small dent in it. So it's really up to the recanonization of stuff, which ordinarily Beskar, that is the way Beskar works back in the old EU, is point blank, you'll kill the dude. At longer ranges, he probably will survive. It can probably deflect it.
Yeah, which he does in the very next episode when they're on Tatooine and they're fighting the sniper. Like, he takes a bunch of shots from the sniper chick. And there's other problems with this episode, like the main the main problem that they're dealing with these bandits is that they got a hold of an ATST, which isn't, the most powerful vehicle in Star Wars, but it's very useful against, platoons of soldiers. Like, it could just mop the floor with soldiers very easily. So they go on like this stealth mission to like lure it to this trap instead of, stealing it.
Or just blowing it up there, which they could have, because they blew up other shit.
Because they gotta teach the villagers to fight for themselves.
There's a lot of like lapses in logic in this. It's still like decent enough, I guess. It's just comparatively to the rest of the series, it is certainly the weak chink in the armor.
I wouldn't call it boring, though. I'd say it was like exciting. It was just, it didn't make a lot of sense, and they were just trying to recreate some shit. But like,
I was bored just because I knew exactly what was going on, and I've seen it before in Star Wars. I knew. Right. Like, if you haven't seen that before, then yes, you're right. It's not boring. I agree.
Well, I knew what had happened too, but like, I'm not generally bored, but I've already been spoiled too. Like, that might just be a me thing. I don't fucking know. Hell with it.
No, I mean, I agree. You're right. Like I said, other people, if they haven't watched Clone Wars, then they're probably not gonna be bored by this episode, and they probably won't think it's as bad as Median I think it is.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty bad too. Like, but that said, like, I wasn't bored by it, and just because I'm bored by something don't mean I think it. Because I'm excited by something don't mean I think it's good.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like the way Cara Dune is introduced as like that stereotypical, like, oh, I don't really want to help you. Okay, I guess I'll help you. Like, okay, it's boring, but I mean, I like having somebody like that there, because I like having someone there that's that could actually, like, she's more skilled than Mando is. Like, that she has more ability than he does. And also, thank you for casting a woman that can beat up a dude that actually looks like she could beat up a dude. I hate it in so many Hollywood movies where they just, we're going to cast ScarJo because we think she's pretty, and she looks like a fucking idiot in the Avengers movies. I'm sorry, I hate ScarJo in the Avengers movies so much in the MCU. But then you watch my example is, and probably most people haven't watched this, but watch The Expanse, and the character Bobby Draper is like a sergeant. She's like a 5'11", like girl and she looks like she could fuck you up, and it like makes sense. Cara Dune looks like she could fuck you up. It makes sense. Thank you for at least making goddamn sense.
Yeah, they
like
certainly
that.
cast. Who's the
all the
actress
casting
that
is
plays
good.
her?
All the casting is great.
They definitely cast someone who looked the part. I don't think her line delivery is excellent. I mean, it's not like cringe or anything. It's it's functional.
It's good enough.
It is good enough. But they certainly cast her because she looks like she can bench press her own weight.
More than that, I would, because I can bench press more than my own weight, and I hadn't even worked out for that long.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and they definitely tried making her more of like, especially like in later, because she does come back in the finale and to help out Mando. They definitely make her more like a shock trooper. Like, yeah, she's super physically fit, but a lot of it's more stamina related. And she's definitely more of a gunner. And the only reason why she was able to kick Mando's ass is because Mando is fucking worthless in hand to hand, as we see in episode 6 when he goes up against the devil looking dude. I can't remember the species name. I think
the
they're
guy
actually
played
called
by Mr.
Devorian.
Krabs.
Yes, yeah, and he just gets his fucking shit wrecked. It reminded me of if you guys have seen the 2005 Punisher movie with Thomas Jane. It reminded me of the scene where Punisher fights the Russian, the big bulletproof like Russian super soldier guy and he's just like getting his ass kicked all across the apartment, and he ends up having to fucking do some cheap ass shit in order to beat the Russian, and then he basically passes out afterwards.
Can we just point out that episode 6 is just the most interesting cast? You have Mark Boone Jr., famous for being in Sons of Anarchy.
Episode 6 has an interesting cast, but not necessarily a good cast. Let's get that off the fucking...
That's what I'm saying. It's a really weird, like, eclectic cast. It's Mark Boone Jr. Well, he's also in... Memento and Batman. I remember he's from Batman. I remember him in Batman too. But let's be honest, he's probably most famous in general for being in Sons of Anarchy. Comedian Bill Burr, who I love Bill Burr, but why is Bill Burr in this? He doesn't even like Star Wars. Clancy Brown, famous for playing Mr. Krabs, among other things. But let's be honest, that's what we know him for. And Richard Ayoade as the voice of the robot. Richard Ayoade, I fucking adore Richard Ayoade, by the way. He's most famous probably for being in the IT Club, a British comedy show. And he's a regular on the Big Fat Quiz, which you haven't watched the Big Fat Quiz. Fucking watch the Big Fat Quiz. It's hilarious.
Only thing I've seen him in is IT Crowd.
Big Fat Quiz is just always on YouTube for free. It's just a British pub quiz with British comedians hosted by Jimmy Carr. It's great. Watch it.
Oh, I've seen a few clips from that, but I've never actually gotten deep into watching.
I watch them religiously. But it's just such a weird cast. But I didn't love the episode, that one either. I gotta say.
Yeah, there are two problems I had with it. It was such a good setup, and I love how they pay it off at the end. But two minor issues. The first one was the Twi'lek girl. I felt like she was way too
She was hamming it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was not good. She was very bad. You know what she looked like? She looked like she was doing a bad Sarah Silverman impression.
Yeah.
I can kind of feel
like the hamminess of like how Sarah Silverman like acts when she's acting. It's
that may have been it. Like, I wasn't too put off by it overall because like that's the sort of thing you expect from some of the characters in Star Wars. Like, we get that from the Emperor all the time, so like might as well be like, okay, yeah, this is the ham it up type deal.
But there's good ham and bad ham.
Yeah,
there is.
But I get your point. Like, it didn't. That's not what made the episode bad for me.
I don't think anything made the episode bad. It was just two complaints I had with it. That was one of them. And the other one, I don't see a reason for Mando to have left them alive. I get the feeling that they're gonna come back and that they didn't want to kill off these quote unquote interesting characters just in case they want to use them again later on down the road. Yeah.
I just thought it was like an overall slightly more lackluster episode.
Yeah.
Well, it was very branching off.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
That's the thing, is it felt very fillerish, and I feel you on that part.
Yeah.
Like it was not main continuity, which I get because this series is what I would call semi-episodic, wherein
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, wherein you've got, yes, they do stick to the main plot pretty much, but they branch off from it a little bit a bunch of times, but it always swerves back to it, where it's like, whereas like a normal episodic thing has no main plot whatsoever. This is what I'd call semi-episodic.
Yeah, it's interesting in that, especially like the beginning episodes, like the first 3 episodes, and actually kind of the fourth one too, but not as much. But definitely the first 3 and the last two are very much like the same thing. But then you got like 4 is kind of tied, 5 is a little bit less. 6 is very not like.
Yeah, I think 5 is the most filler-ish. That's the one where they go to Tatooine and Mando teams up with a young pistol whipping kid in order to take down a sniper chick.
Yeah.
That was also, again, it's not one of my favorites either. I'd say those middle 3 are the ones that I weakest personally.
I had no problems with episode 5. Though I had like the small nitpick with how the sand people are brought in, because it's just like Mando and this kid are just talking, and Mando's like, yeah, we should look out for the locals. Like, what locals? And he turns, and the 2 sand people are just standing there like waiting for their cue to say something, like, like just just standing there and then they like like it's a fucking jump scare for this kid. They just go like
Cause, it is a little out of character, because like sand people are usually their usual reaction to everything is, so I start blasting. That's what their usual reaction.
Sand people ride single file to hide their numbers. These blast points far too accurate for only an Imperial Stormtrooper is
that accurate. God, that's the one that might be the worst part of original Star Wars, is that line.
Well, I mean, unless you take everyone's headcanon that like the Stormtroopers just let everyone escape, and that the Stormtroopers are only bad in proportion to the main characters, and that take a normal Stormtrooper and a normal Rebel soldier, normal Stormtrooper wins.
Like,
anyway.
Yeah. But that's just an excuse, really.
So back to the directing, I thought was interesting, is because Dave Filoni, I love Dave Filoni because he worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and obviously he's responsible for Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which are both amazing series. I think he actually only worked on the first season of Avatar, which is
he directed a couple episodes. He wasn't like a mainstay though.
No, but he it's good pedigree basically if you're on that show.
Yeah.
And he directs the first episode, does a good job. It's not like the directing is bad in chapter 5 either, but it's not as great an episode. The episodes, my 2 of my 3 favorite episodes, I really like the first one, and my other 2 favorites are chapter 3 and chapter 7, which are both directed by, which I didn't notice until after I started looking all of this up, and I was like,
hold on, who's it directed by?
Deborah Chow. Both of them were directed by Deborah Chow, and I was like, oh, she's done like a lot of other stuff, and some like she was on episodes of Copper she directed, which is a very little known TV series that I really, really enjoyed. So
is it about cops?
Yes, it is. What do you know? It's like it takes place in 5 points in during the Civil War. So it stars like Irish.
I've actually seen that now that I think of it, but I only watched like a few episodes of it.
I liked it. It's not amazing, but like it's pretty good. I like it. But she's also directed episodes of Mr. Robot, which is known for being pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things from that show.
Yeah. That's exactly why I won't watch Mr. Robot, because I got to hear the bad things along with the good to fully watch something if I've already been.
So I just thought that was cool because I think the 2 episodes she did were very, very excellent, and I like what she did. And she's also going to be directing some of the episodes in the Kenobi series, which is very good news that they're bringing her back for that. Because
good stuff.
I'm not smart enough to know a ton about directing. I'll tell you that right now. But I just know that 2 of my 3 favorite episodes are directed by the same person. Probably not completely a coincidence.
Hey, I'll tell you exactly all you need to fucking know about directing. Legitimately, just go up to your actors. Be like, yo, actor, why are you acting like such a fucking retard? That's not how you fucking do this scene, you piece of shit. Okay? Like, just fucking do it like I tell you to. Stop adding your own shit. But director, I think we should do it like, no, fuck you. Do it like I tell you to do it, or you're getting fucking fired and replaced, you piece of shit. There you go. I'm a fucking Hollywood director now. I figured it out.
There's an Alfred Hitchcock quote that said, "I never said that actors were cattle. I said that they should be treated as such."
I guess the best way I can express, especially with those 2 episodes, she does at least the episodes, and I'm assuming this is partly because of her direction. It's great. The tension built and like the standoffs are done very well, and both of those episodes have what I could probably say are the best standoffs. Because episode 8 is great, but there's not really a same level standoff between like who's the Moff guy?
Moff Gideon.
Moff Gideon. Yeah. It's not really like a one-on-one, like a standoff the way like in episode 3 when he comes in and he's like is that episode 3 or is that not in episode 3 actually?
No, Moff Gideon doesn't come in until the end of episode 7.
No, I know it's not that.
The other main Imperial guy is played by Werner Herzog. I don't know his character's name, but
the scene in episode 3 where Mando talks to him and actually asks him about what he asked him what he's gonna use the child for. That whole scene was done really well.
Yeah, I really liked Werner Herzog's character because he added a dimension to the Empire that I think really goes understated, especially in canon. It was there in the expanded universe, but Disney kind of did away with all the nuance of the Empire. But this show really brought it back with Werner Herzog's character being like, "Hey, look, every system the Empire touches turns to gold. Peace, prosperity, job opportunities, welfare, just economic growth. We're the ones who bring that, and also the peace and stability. The rebels, the New Republic, the Old Republic during the Clone Wars, the Trade Federation, the CIS, they brought nothing but chaos and destruction to planets like this. The Empire is the only way. That's why the Empire is still going strong, even after the Emperor's death."
Yeah, the thing about the Empire was that it was ethical but not moral. A lot of the time, it was always looking out for the greater good, but not the individual good.
Yeah, like in the expanded universe and stuff, the core worlds especially, they didn't really get any changes after the Clone Wars. Before the Clone Wars and after the Clone Wars, like it was still Coruscant was still just this booming urban metropolis. It wasn't like Lion King where Scar takes over and all of a sudden it's a drought and everything's a desert wasteland.
Which I mean, like you can kind of blame that part of the Lion King if you like, which tech looked at that as a flaw.
Well, that's just thematic symbolism and shit.
Well, yeah, it's brought over from the Fisher King from King Arthur. Really, if you get deep down into it, because it's like, oh, the ruler decides what the realm he rules over looks like, and but it like matches him on the inside.
Yeah.
It's a weird it's a weird sort of thing that's a bit too thematic for my tastes nowadays, because I've become one of these fucking plot centric goons who's like, you know what, everybody just wants a story, just give them a story, give them a point A to point B and how do they get there type of thing, rather than focusing on themes and world building too much. But I don't know, that's just me. Like
that is more the way I am too in general.
Yeah.
Like I want a good and interesting plot,
And
which
I
is
think-
why I'm glad this show is mostly like has a main driving plot through the whole series, which is, and it's probably why I don't like episodes 4, 5, and 6 as much, because they stray a bit more from that central plot. So
I'll tell you the thing that I think. I think if you get a good plot going, you've got a good series or movie or whatever you got going on.
yep,
And if
I
you get a
think
good plot going and pile some good characters on top of that, but don't prioritize the characters over the plot, then you've got an excellent fucking thing. And the world building and the themes, the world building is literally just there as a tool to facilitate the good stuff. And the themes just arise naturally from it. But there are people out there like, fuck you, Brandon Sanderson. Robert, you're not here right now, so fuck you too. But fuck you, Brandon Sanderson, with your stupid ass world building that takes priority over the actual plot, where you have to fucking explain to me how everything fucking works in your crazy ass desert planet. No, like, that's not what it's there for. The fucking story is what everything should be there for in a story. Like, just fucking focus on your story if you're writing the story. That's what I think.
Yeah. As much as I should probably read the Sanderson guy as much as you and Robert talk about him.
Like, I'd recommend it just so you can know how fucking boring and atrocious it is. I like
Yeah,
legit
no thanks.
like read Way of Kings and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that you're fucking falling asleep like less than a quarter of the way through the damn book.
Yeah. I had similar problems with a lot of Jules Verne's books that I read. So let's get on what that kind of main plot is, because the main plot really is about this really weird father-son dynamic that Mando develops with Baby Yoda, because in the first episode it establishes Mandalorian. Second episode establishes Baby Yoda and why he's so important. And so, like, it's episode 2 that establishes that he's absurdly strong with the Force. Like, he picks up that rhino creature and just tosses it around. And then, episode 3 is Mandalorian making the decision that fuck the Empire. I'm gonna protect Baby Yoda myself. Then episode 4, introduces Cara Dune and kind of establishes. It kind of does establish what Mandalorian wants at the end of the day, which is a place to call home and a place where he and Baby Yoda can both be safe. But that's not going to happen for as long as the Empire is after him. Episode 5 separates them. Baby Yoda gets that wiry haired babysitter chick, while Mando and bounty hunter dude go on their mission. Episode 6 establishes that again it again separates them, but at the end of the day, Mandalorian has to save Baby Yoda from the droid. And then episode 7 and 8 are all about like the trying to clear that debt with the bounty hunter guild, trying to get them off their back, taking the fight to them, to the Empire, and trying to clean house.
Yeah, pretty much. And clean house they semi do. Like, putting it that way, I think that's probably the reason that I disliked episode 6 out of all of the episodes, because it branched off so much further from the main plot of Mando and Baby Yoda being together and him trying to look out for him. At least with episodes 4 and 5, they kind of had him sort of trying to accomplish things specifically for Baby Yoda, whereas episode 6, it was like, I need gas money.
You're right. I mean, that's true. You're totally right. And I do love that dynamic. That's I didn't know that's what the show was going to be, and that's kind of what I was worried about. I was like, okay, we got a Mandalorian kind of known for just being like outlaws, and they don't really have much of them. Like, they have their code, but they can be assholes, right? Like I love that you kind of knew when he saw Baby Yoda that's probably what it was going to be, and I love that that's what it was. Where it's like, it's that kind of westerny thing with the scoundrel with the heart of gold kind of thing, right? And it's a little bit of a trope, but people don't really make westerns that much anymore, so it's one that's okay to reuse now because it doesn't really happen that much. And most of the westerns that we've gotten recently have been much more actiony, like not that thief with that not thief, but that outlaw with a heart of gold thing. Older westerns are kind of like that, especially like 50s and 60s and early 70s westerns did that. But like 90s and 2000s and 2010s westerns, like I mean, I guess what's it called? A couple of them did that, but not the Quentin Tarantino ones.
90s, 2000s, and 2010s westerns are basically about chicks getting raped and then rising up as being strong, independent women who are against the rapists now. That's basically it.
Really? Which ones are you talking about besides Django? And she doesn't even rise up. Django has to save her.
Well, I mean, besides Django, there's fucking damn it, what the fuck is that one?
There's the fucking remake by the Coen brothers, but she doesn't get raped in that one. It's just her dad dies.
Yeah.
There's also the one with the 310 to Yuma, which
whiskey
women basically aren't in that
one. I forget what it
90s
was called.
one. There's Unforgiven, which also there's basically nothing about women getting taken advantage of at all in that one.
Maybe I'm just looking at the fucking worst one out of all of them. I damn sure fucking think it was like whiskey something or other. I can't fucking
remember. Okay, maybe I haven't seen it then. Anyway, yeah. I like that's what the main dynamic is. I love the main dynamic. I think a lot of people I think that's partly why the show's been so successful, not just because Baby Yoda is a meme. I mean, he's adorable even without him being a meme. He's fucking cute. Like the whole thing where like he keeps trying to screw the ball off of like I don't know what this is, like it's not his gear shift, is like his hyperdrive. There's like hyperdrive switch or something.
Switch for something on the ship.
Yeah,
it's fucking cute, man. And just the way he like walks around.
Yeah, he's adorable.
He's fucking adorable.
The fact that in episode 3, Mandalorian actually hands him over to the Empire, goes back to his ship, sees the fucking switch that Baby Yoda had been playing with, and is just like, god damn it. Leaves the ship and goes back to get his baby.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And we know why Baby Yoda did all of these adorable things. He fucking takes the ball off the switch because he thinks it's got ketamine in it. He fucking takes that cup out of the fucking place in the forest planet because he thinks he's got ketamine in there. It's all just a search for ketamine for Baby Yoda. That's the real motivation behind the whole plot. That's what we really got to think about. Like, how is Baby Yoda going to get his ketamine from the rhino alien thing? Obviously, he's got to manipulate it with the Force and fucking let Mando stab it so he can get that sweet, sweet ketamine. Fucking get the Jawas off his back.
Something else I wanted to bring up. Can we just talk about how many references to the Star Wars Holiday Special there are in this? Of all goddamn things, there are at least there are at least 2 in the first episode alone.
They could fuck with it. They know they could fuck with it as much as they want because George can't tell them not to. Yeah. And I bet you, a lot of it is Dave. I'm not saying I'm totally right because Dave used to work with George on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I know he might not fully resent it, but I know he said that the Jar Jar episodes were forced in by George. Every time they had to put Jar Jar in an episode, it's because of George. George still tried to force Jar Jar even into the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Dave made him more bearable than he was in fucking
Phantom Menace,
episode,
at least.
Phantom Menace, but actually in season 6, he's actually kind of good with Mace Windu. It's fucking weird.
Oh yeah,
but that's
yeah,
actually a great couple episodes. It's fucking weird. But so good job, Dave. But I bet you anything that's not anything, but I'm guessing that's part of why they're fucking with the holiday special more, because now Dave can make Star Wars stuff without having to answer to George anymore.
Yeah. Hey Disney, when are we gonna get the holiday special on Disney Plus?
Oh my god! If they got that'd be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Everybody would subscribe then.
Yeah. So the two are like they mentioned Life Day in the first episode. The Blue Alien mentions that like he has to get home for Life Day, and Mandalorian's primary weapon, the disintegration gun, was the same weapon used by Boba Fett in the holiday special, which the holiday special was the very first appearance of Boba Fett, and by extension, the very first appearance of that Mandalorian armor.
Yep.
And that gun too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does the gun even appear in anything else?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't think so.
If you don't go EU with it.
I mean, yeah, obviously in the EU, everything fucking comes into play like all the time.
I know, but I meant besides that.
There are similar weapons in like Clone Wars and stuff, but not
the
not
most
that
similar
one
weapon I can think of from Clone Wars is the one that the stealth droids used that one time as a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
But that's not a disintegration cannon. That's still just it's basically, even blasters are not like, well, depending on how you fucking look at it, it's basically just a high powered blaster. But that is explained better in the EU than it is in current canon. It's a high
powered blaster that can melt Jawas with a single shot.
Yeah.
Can melt almost anybody with a single shot.
Yeah.
It's a fucking cool weapon. I like it. It's cool to watch people disintegrate. It's kind of dope.
Yeah,
they call it a pulse rifle, I believe.
Yeah. Wait, the stealth droids one or
the Mandalorians thing.
The Mandalorian
which I guess pulse rifle is just a classification of rifle, because there are also pulse rifles in the Battlefront game, and they're like a high powered sniper thing that you can charge up and stuff.
Pulse is meant to be the stun mode, though, of the typical blaster rifle used. I don't think that's meant to be its own type of rifle. I may be wrong about that, but I was pretty sure that pulse mode was just a different term for stun mode. They might have changed it around. This, like I said, I'm operating off of back in the day shit. I don't go into the fucking supplementary materials nowadays too deep.
Yeah, not too deep. I do catch glimpses of the comics from YouTubers that I watch.
Same, but I just watch them for the criticism and the fucking funny jokes that they make. I don't really give a damn about the comics. I don't even really know why I should still be subscribed to them for that reason. If I'm comics, why am I interested in them? Fuck you guys. Start making your own shit, damn it. That's the reason I'm fucking still down with fucking what's his name? Guy who made Jawbreakers. He made a fucking comic of his own. You can do it too, you dumbasses.
Yep. And so, what else do we need to talk about with this? Oh,
we've gone over the plot.
How about the odds of future season Baby Yoda getting his own Mandalorian armor that perfectly fits him? How fucking cool would that be?
Mandalorian helmet with the ears?
Yeah.
I would say the odds are near zero.
Yeah, they're probably pretty low, but that'd be fucking hilarious.
Because they've already established Baby Yoda to be a foundling, and they've already established that he's not the type of foundling that they want to keep in the clan. They want to find his parents. So that's what Mando is going to try to do. And also, he's got force powers, which the Mandalorians don't appreciate. There have been some Mandalorians who use the force and combine it with the Mandalorian code, but they don't mesh well together because like the light side and the dark side are kind of a two separate things from the code of the Mandalorians entirely, because they both rely on emotion, whereas the Mandalorian code relies on the suppression of all emotion. Not just relying on, oh, I'm the dark side, I rely on fear and anger. Oh, I'm the light side, I rely on love and kindness. The Mandalorians are like, we rely on being able to kill the motherfucker you need to kill in the most fucking efficient way possible so you don't die.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of touch on the lack of knowledge regarding the Jedi in this, because I always find it weird with how relatively recent the Clone Wars were and how prevalent the Jedi were in that. And I know that there were like 2,000 Jedi and thousands upon thousands of planets, so I get that it's normal for people to never meet a Jedi, but I find it odd that none of these characters have at least heard of the Jedi. The only one that has is the Forager chick with the Mandalorians.
There's two possible ways of going about explaining that during this time period, at least, and not during some of the others. And that is that imperial propaganda could have played a huge role in both suppressing and sort of overshadowing the existence of the Jedi. So which, like, if I'm an imperial media slave of some sort that is like supposed to be pumping out propaganda, I would be like, hey, check it out, we got this empire now. Hey, these Jedi, don't even worry about them, they're not even a thing, they're actually fake. It was all fake news all the time. Another thing could just be that it's literally just the galaxy is bigger than we think it is, which I think I'm pretty sure they've reestablished a size of the galaxy. They used to be all over the place with how big or how small it was, but for like, if the galaxy is like super huge and the Jedi aren't that huge, then you might have heard stories, but it might not have been that big of a deal. I'd go with the former rather than the latter, because it's just more of an active role that the Empire played in suppressing the knowledge of the Jedi, which is something that, you know, if you're an Empire that goes around slaughtering people, is probably something you should be doing, is being like, hey, no, these people never existed, we never slaughtered them because they weren't there in the first place. Also, by the way, the Force doesn't exist, fuck that shit.
Well, and see, that always made sense to me, like, because there are so many crazy shit. There's so much crazy shit in the Star Wars universe that it's very easy to hand wave, you know, Force powers as just mutations or actual just superpowers, and not as like manifestations of this omnipresent, omnipotent power that binds all things in the universe. Which is basically what Han says in A New Hope. Like, you know, it's just hokey religions. Like, I've seen all that stuff, and there's nothing that has convinced me that there's one all-powerful force connecting all of it. So that made sense to me, and my headcanon has always been just the Empire was really good at suppressing information on the Jedi. But I wanted to kind of burst that into one thing that really interested me about Mandalorian, which was his hatred of droids and how it ties into his origin, which is tied into the Clone Wars.
That kind of gets into some shit that kind of fucks up the previous canon. As we all recall, during the Clone Wars, Mandalore was ruled by the pacifist Mandalorians.
That was not Mandalore that we see in the flashbacks. He is not from Mandalore. He's a Foundling.
No, he isn't.
Yeah.
But neither was he rescued by the other active faction of the Mandalorians, which was Pre Vizsla's Death Watch.
Yeah.
So he had to be rescued by true Mandalorians. But how in the
how is Pre Vizsla's Death Watch not true Mandalorians? He is he has a bloodline that is traced to
the true Mandalorians do not care about the blood.
Yeah.
The blood is nothing to the true Mandalorians. If you are found by a Mandalorian, if you are adopted by them or in some way, and if you are raised by them, and if you swear yourself to them, you are a Mandalorian, whether you were born to them or not. At least that's what the previous canon was. I don't know what the
and so basically, you can hand wave that as like, okay, so in the Clone Wars TV show, all we saw were the pacifists and Death Watch. Star Wars Galaxy is huge. The Clone Wars, even though they only happened over the course of 3 years, a lot was going on all at once in those 3 years. So maybe there was this other faction of Mandalorians somewhere out in the galaxy, and they're the ones that found our main hero here.
That makes the most sense. It wasn't touched on previously, and it wasn't set up properly. But if they want to set it up here, I'm fairly fine. They are in keeping with the ways of the true Mandalorians somewhat, except that they all have the uniform armor, which is not what the true Mandalorians did. The true Mandalorians always kept their individual armor and painted it as they achieved things, which is what Mando himself does and his clan does. So I'm kind of not getting why all the people that rescued him had the same blue color to their armor. That was a little bit off for me, but like, you know, say, yeah, the true Mandos were the ones that rescued Mando, then yeah, that's fine by me. Like, but I would really like some delving into the true Mandos a little bit more.
Yeah, I would really like to see how this fits in with like what else was going on with Mandalore at that time with you know Pre Vizsla and Death Watch and the pacifists and get just a little more of like what Mando's training kind of entailed.
Like generally, if we want to get into the pre. So the Clone Wars, like we all know, it bridges that period where the Clone Wars was first introduced during the period where the EU was still canon, and so it retains a lot of the stuff from the EU. And while they kept the Clone Wars canon, they got rid of the EU with the introduction of the sequel trilogy. So technically, it does bridge that gap between the stuff that got pushed out of the EU and the stuff that is still canon. So the best way, honestly, to do it, and from what you've said about the new canon behind why Mandalore is dead, is to just have the same Mandalorian civil war that they had, where Pre Vizsla and his Death Watch fight against the true Mandalorians, and they both weaken themselves so much that the pacifist Mandalorians are able to take over because neither of them can actually fight back against them at that point. Also because they're pussies.
Always comes back to that when it comes to Mandalore and Clone Wars.
Always comes back to that when it comes to me, man. I fucking hate those motherfuckers.
Yeah, this, you can definitely tell that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni kind of had different ideas of what to do with the Mandalorian religion, and yeah, I like Jon Favreau more. I like the fucking weapons are put in my religion, as opposed to all the stuff with Duchess Satine, or even Pre Vizsla's Death Watch, because. Wasn't I really liked a lot of the Mandalore stuff in Clone Wars from a story standpoint, but from like a mythos standpoint, I was like, oh man, they kind of sapped a lot of the coolness out of it.
Yeah, I mean they added a little bit of coolness to it with the Darksaber, but even I'm like, the Darksaber, come on guys, how the fuck do you even make that shit? Like this is kind of out there. even for Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a fucking cool weapon idea. And it makes an appearance in the final episode because Moff Gideon fucking got a hold of it somehow.
It's also in Rebels too.
Yeah, it's all over the fucking place. I love it, but I fucking hate it at the same time. I don't know. It's just the fucking thing.
I haven't seen Rebels.
MacGuffined it a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's all over the place and in weird places that you have to look into how it got there in the first. They fucking find it on Dathomir in Rebels for some fucking reason, and I'm like, wait, did Maul even have it at the end? I thought he got like fucking disarmed from him by the Death Watch. It's like.
No, I'm pretty sure Maul still had it when he fought Palpatine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. He was dual wielding at that point. He had a red and the dark saber, which that's another thing I dislike about Maul from the Clone Wars is that he constantly used a different style from the ones he was introduced with in the first fucking movie, which was the double bladed. I just wanted to see him use more double bladed, but he kept using different shit, and I was like, I don't like this Maul fighting style. Give me the double bladed again.
He's still great in the Clone Wars, but yes, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't necessarily know why they did it because they literally had double bladed elsewhere.
I think they did it more to differentiate him from Savage Opress. Because Savage also had the double bladed lightsaber, and I think that was where the mistake was made. I don't think Savage deserved that style.
Agreed. Yeah, if anybody should have had it, should have been Maul.
Well, Savage was specifically trained by Dooku. Why would he train him like Maul when Dooku doesn't even know that style as well as Maul does? He would have trained him in the fucking in the Form 2.
Yeah,
Form 2. Well, I mean, Dooku was the former Saber Master, so he is actually a master of all 7, but he prefers Form 2 because it's the one that is the best suited for actual lightsaber combat.
Right?
Yeah. The only thing you could possibly say is that he trained him in Maul's saber form specifically to keep him weaker than himself so that he wouldn't be overtaken. But
that and he was playing some psychological warfare with Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Makashi, that's the one. That's the Form 2.
Yeah.
Or if my guess is because George Lucas likes, or whoever made it is probably thinking of Japanese, it'd be Makashi.
Yeah.
But either way, that's Form 2. Yeah. Maul, I mean, not Maul, sorry. In the
Makashi, Kakashi, I don't give a shit what it's called. I call it Form 2 because that's what I fucking remember from the way I do my HEMA shit where everything's just numbered. Talhuffer is the man, by the way. Listen to him when it comes to longsword.
I think it's actually the coolest looking Form 2 as well.
Yeah. I was liked Form 5.
Form 2 is the coolest. Is probably the most realistic because it capitalizes on the lightsaber's natural gifts more than the other forms do. The other forms copy forms from they add in spins and back turns that you shouldn't do in real life. But like they sort of copy things that use a lot of the two-handed styles, which you do not need with a lightsaber. With a lightsaber, you should be using saber or rapier style, which is what Form 2 is. Like, and the fact that Form 2, Dooku has his weapon actually customized towards Form 2 makes it double effective because he's basically got a pistol grip on the damn thing. He can easily extend its reach to the appropriate length. And that's like another thing is that like because of the rear weightedness of it due to its essentially weightless blade, almost weightless, you you basically you need to use a heavy hilt style with it that's one-handed, and you need to extend your reach so you oppose your opponent's ability to get close enough to you to even touch you with that thing. It's essentially fencing with a lightsaber. The first time you get touched, the first time you're dead most of the time.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love Form 2 best out of all of them that have been come up with.
I also like that, like you said, it takes advantage of the lightsaber's natural abilities, and that it's the one that looks like, because lightsabers don't slide. Once the lightsaber comes in contact with a lightsaber, it's stuck there. And Makashi is the one that looks like that. It looks like it's actually designed to fight that way, which is partly why I really like it as well. Plus plus Duke always looks so swag when he fights like that.
Oh yeah,
he's got like his hand behind his back, just like looks so chill. Like, yeah, I'm kicking your ass. It's great.
It's a very confident form, and that does capitalize off of your typical saber or rapier stance, because legitimately with that you put your hand either behind your back in a fist or you put it on your hip, depending on what like manuals you're going off of, and there's a more wide variety of those than the ones from further back in the day, because obviously that kind of thing retained its sensibilities into for a longer period of time, from around like the 14th, or rather the 15th to the 18th centuries. That was a big deal. And so there were many manuals put on it, but they all essentially testamented to the same thing. Stand to the side so you're less of a target, extend your arm out all the way so that you got a bunch of reach, and then just move with your wrist and do all of your maneuvers like that. And you should be able to kill a dude pretty easy. And don't get close until you're super confident you've got an opening to exploit. Also, if somebody gets close to you, you can punch them with the fucking D guard on your hilt. That's a pretty cool move, but it's very situational.
Yeah. We like to educate here on my channel.
I don't fucking like to educate shit. Learn for your damn selves, puny fucking human.
Puny humans. What up?
So what else do we have to talk about? Any I think with season 2 it's going to be maybe a little more
It's
episodic.
going to be looking for Yoda's parents or whatever his species is.
We might actually finally get a name for Yoda's race, which will be the first time that's happened in any continuity, as far as I'm aware.
I'm assuming we are going to get that. What Disney does. I think Disney will do that.
I'm gonna go anti with that. I'm assuming we will find some of Yoda's species,
well, that for sure,
but we will never learn what the name is. Mando will just find some and be like handing off the kid to him, and be like, "Hey, I got this kid thing. Do you guys want it? Yeah, sure, we'll take it. We're the same species." Like, if they want to pull a joke with that, they'll be
no. It would
Mando,
be take him. We will same species. We are.
Yeah. And then Mando will be like, "What species are you anyway?" And then they'll just fucking go off. Like,
we are Yoda race. That is just what everyone has called us for decades.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, like it's still possible we'll never learn the name, just because it's become a tradition at this point not to have a name for it.
What if it did end with the final line was, "So wait, what race are you? Have you ever heard of Yoda?" That's all they say.
Oh yeah, you guys are the same race as Yoda. Do you guys like ketamine too? Is that like a Yoda race thing? I keep fucking giving it to baby Yoda, but he doesn't seem to get enough. I don't know what the deal is with him. Oh yes, we much ketamine do we need? Keep us alive. It does.
I'm gonna have to go back through this and just count how many fucking ketamine jokes we make.
I think it's
for Force powers it gives us.
I love it.
Also, another thing about the Yoda species is that we do have Yaddle, who doesn't talk like Yoda. Yoda is the only one of that species who talks like him.
Well, Yoda doesn't even really talk very extremely like that in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So I know, God, it was so long ago that I read this, but like some linguistics professor or whatever basically said that that the way Yoda talks, makes it seem like English or Galactic Basic is the canon word for it, is his second language. Like that's not his actual primary language. Whereas for Yaddle and for Baby Yoda, it would be.
Gotcha.
So that's why he structures the sentences like he does, because that's how they're structured in his native language, which we just never hear. That's some linguistics for you. Final thoughts. I think the show is great. I am really looking forward to season 2. It is. I hesitate to say that it's worth the price of Disney Plus, but Disney Plus is actually one of the cheapest streaming services you can get right now, and it does have a pretty decent catalog of TV shows as well. Like Disney Plus also has has Gargoyles, Rescue Rangers, the Winnie the Pooh show that I've been actually low key.
Does
watching.
it have Tailspin on it?
I don't know, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah,
but I have not looked for it.
I will give Disney credit for knowing that, because they don't actually have all their stuff yet, because they still have deals with like Netflix and shit.
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, we definitely can't charge $10 for this yet.
Yeah. Well, I don't
give them credit for that. And
they will.
They're including like special features on a lot of stuff too, which is something that people have wanted Netflix and Amazon and all that shit to do forever. And Disney's like, okay, yeah, you can have like like all these special features and shit.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Thank you, Disney, for that. Like you do not do everything right, but that's pretty good. I like that.
Obviously, they also have like Clone Wars and Rebels and all the like classic Disney TV
New Clone
shows.
Wars is coming out soon.
Like Kim Possible. They have all the classic Disney movies.
Yes.
They even have Saludos Amigos, as if I'm remembering correctly.
Saludos Amigos,
yes.
The racist Disney cartoon that didn't get hammered like Song of the South did.
Yes. It's because they're making fun of Mexicans instead of black people.
Damn straight. If you're a spick, you get the fucking hick. That's what you get.
So I mean, I know a lot of people hate Disney and stuff, and I do know that one of the complaints with The Mandalorian is that it doesn't go far enough with certain things. It's not overly ambitious. It is very ambitious with its effects. This is very movie quality. I'm glad that it's getting all the award nominations for like effects, works, and sound design, and all these technical awards. And I absolutely hope it steals all of them away from Game of Thrones.
It should. It definitely should. Game of Thrones effects are not nearly as... Even its fight choreography is not nearly up there with Mandalorian.
Especially like the last season of Game of Thrones, from what I've heard.
Yeah, they're terrible.
So like I'm not shilling for Disney. They do not need my money. I don't even pay for my own Disney Plus. I have a family member who pays for it, and then I just use their account. But I mean, it is worth checking out.
Perfectly legitimate means of finding it.
But The Mandalorian, I think it's a very agreeable show. Like it's not offensive. It's not divisive in any way. It's not purposely challenging and by extension pissing people off like a lot of the movies have lately. It's just good, solid, fun. Probably disposable at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we'll see how well it holds up in the coming years. But yeah, it certainly gets my recommendation.
I'd recommend it too. Like just because of everything we've said, and like there's the hold up argument. Oh, how will it hold up? I have no fucking clue. But it is good, and I think honestly, whether or not it specifically holds up, I think it's a good way for Disney to go about doing the next stuff. And I think if it succeeds well, which it already has,
Well, yeah.
and if it succeeds even further, then Disney will be like trying to adjust their approach to certain things and trying to make things more like, okay, well, we tried the whole route we did with the sequel trilogy and that didn't exactly work out correctly. Maybe we should just try simplifying things and making things solid instead of being overly ambitious and trying to go
Yeah.
all out with stuff.
Yeah. And I addressed that in my little brief thoughts on the Mandalorian video I did a few weeks ago, where I said that, like, if this was divisive, if this did get kind of the same audience reaction as, like, Last Jedi, it could have really tanked Disney Plus as a viable platform, because this is the spearhead. This is the only, like, really original show that they had at launch, and they haven't done a whole lot of, like, original series yet. They have a bunch in the works. Like, they have a Kenobi thing, Clone Wars Season 7, obviously, as we've mentioned before. They have a bunch of Marvel stuff coming in later this year. And so, like, if Mandalorian wasn't this just solid, agreeable show, a lot of those shows may have gotten canceled. So now, like, it's getting a lot of people's foot in the door. It's getting a lot of people onto the streaming service. You know, come for the Mandalorian, stay for all the other stuff you are already familiar with and have already seen when you were a kid. And now that they're going to be able to kind of push the envelope and specialize. You know, like, don't try making every show for everyone. You know, Mandalorian is for everyone, and then it could stay that way. And because it could stay that way, they can make, you know, WandaVision for this type of audience, Kenobi for this type of audience. Clone Wars Season 7 is obviously going to be for all the diehard Clone Wars fans who really love that show, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It also gives me confidence for like the future projects, honestly. Like, the fact they did a good job on this and they didn't do anything stupid, like, makes me look. And, you know, Filoni's involved with this. I know he's involved with Clone Wars Season 7. It gives me good confidence for Clone Wars, and it gives me more confidence for the Obi-Wan show, especially because the director I liked best, who's done provenly good things before, is going to be back for that too. I'm happy to see that kind of stuff.
This does indeed bait everyone in for everything else that they're doing. Like, at the end of the day, even if it isn't good itself, which I still think it's good. Yeah. But yeah, it's for sure the good reel-in device for anything else that they decide to make after this. I would say that if I wanted to dissect that strategy specifically and criticize that, I would say maybe I would have tried producing and releasing multiple shows alongside this, so that, yes, this would be the bait-in, but you'd have an actual trap laid already for people to stay on for. Because right now, the episodes are over. We've for this season at least, we're like, why am I on Disney Plus right now? Is a thought that's going through a lot of people's minds that have finished this.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have they don't have another original show on there, which they don't, they've got to rely specifically on rewatches of this plus rewatches of all of their old shows, or just new uptakes of them, which some people would like to do. And that's a little bit of a bad business plan, and I think they probably should have decided to immediately either have something alongside this released at the same time, or immediately have something queued up to take its place.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, yeah, I think there will be a lot of people who stick around for it, even if they cancel their subscription and then renew it once the next season of it comes out. Yeah. And if they do that, by that time, hopefully they'll have some other original content
which they will.
which they will. Yeah, and then it'll start working the way we would have advised them to have it work.
Yeah, I think with that, like they just couldn't get more than one show off the ground in the time that Disney was like wanting to have this release, because you can kind of tell that they really wanted Mandalorian to come out like in conjunction with Jedi Fallen Order and with Rise of Skywalker, which are two other really big Star Wars things that came out in the last months of 2019.
Yeah.
Especially with episode 7 of this series, where they actually released it a couple days early so that it could come out a couple days before Rise of Skywalker, because there's an element that was very divisive in Rise of Skywalker that is actually handled a lot better here, which is the Force healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can kind of tell that there was some like puppeteering, trying to get things to line up for kind of maximum audience reception. And again, I think it's a really good strategy, and it's a really good kind of selling point to keep Disney Plus at such a low price, especially since they own all the shit anyway.
Yeah.
They're not paying licensing fees. Like, Netflix pays absurd amounts of money to keep Friends on their fucking platform. Like, half their fucking budget goes to Friends. Like, that's why they keep jacking up the price of Netflix, because the people who own Friends are like, give me more, give me more, give me more. And Netflix is like, so do we cut this subpar rom-com sitcom TV
that show is the most overrated piece of crap in the world,
or do we jack up the prices so that we can keep paying these absurd licensing fees? More money always sounds good.
Friends is so overrated.
It really is.
It's the most overrated show I think ever.
Yeah, but that's something that's really kind of fucking Netflix over right now, is they're losing a lot of these contracts that they had with these other developers because they're not handling their money very well as far as licensing goes. Disney Plus will not run into that problem because they already own everything on their service. Everything that Disney owns will eventually go on Disney Plus, except Song of the South, because they don't want that movie to exist.
Hey, but maybe one day. One day.
Mark my words, we will get the Star Wars holiday special on Disney Plus before we get Song of the South.
Hey, we're back. We're back in the Roaring 20s, boys. Yes. It's time to go back to that old way of thinking, where perhaps the gays and the Negroes weren't so great.
Oh God. So yeah, I do think they're really they're really going about this in a
the
really
rest of
smart
us do
way.
do not support the views of Coop.
Yes.
Yeah.
That goes without saying.
Nobody supports my fucking views. Don't worry. I'm just a fucking racist homophobe. Kill me on Twitter. You can find me.
Yeah, sure. So that's really all I have to say about Mandalorian, and by extension Disney Plus as a platform. Check it out.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, it's the same fucking thing. Check it out. Even though Disney Plus is cheap, if you're super cheap like I am, you can always find perfectly legitimate means to check out The Mandalorian. And if you like it, you might get hooked onto Disney Plus. Who knows? Yeah. And they do have other stuff coming up. They got the Clone Wars. They got the Obi-Wan series that has been promised to us for a very long time. And so, like, honestly,
we've seen Ewan McGregor growing his hair out. We know it's coming.
Yeah. I saw an interview with Ewan McGregor. It was for Dr. Sleep, I think, and someone asked him like the Obi-Wan question. He's like, do you have any idea how long I've known about this?
Yeah.
And had to keep it a secret?
4 years. They've been talking to him about it for 4 years, I think it is.
Yeah.
That's how long he's basically known. It's crazy.
That's just the official talks too. Like
exactly.
we've been thinking about this almost ever since the end of the fucking Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah,
like,
and certainly ever since they announced that they're going to be doing spin-off movies, which was in 2012
yes.
when they signed that contract with George Lucas to buy Lucasfilm. They're like, yeah, we're going to have the main trilogy, and we're also going to have spin-offs like Rogue One. And ever since then, everyone was like, Boba Fett and Obi-Wan movies win.
Yeah.
Well, ever since even when the prequels came out, and whether you loved, were indifferent to, or hated the prequels, everybody agreed the best part of them was Obi-Wan. Everybody agreed that Obi-Wan and Ewan McGregor were like were either the best part or the only good part. So that's why everybody
or one of the better
wants
parts of the three movies, at least.
Yeah, the only thing that that they screwed up was that when he came on stage, when they announced that he was going to be doing the show, he didn't say hello there. That was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, apparently he doesn't go on Reddit very often.
So he's busy, so that's fine. I understand. He's like an actually cool, good-looking man. He doesn't need to do that shit. That's fine. But somebody could have at least told him to do it. That would be good enough. That's all we would care about. We don't need him to know. We just need him to do it for us.
Yes. So, if you liked the wrapping things up, if you like this podcast and you want us to do more podcasts like this, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Check out my other videos. I do mostly content on Ruby, but I'm branching out, especially with Ruby Volume 7 wrapping up soon. We do plan on doing podcasts on the Clone Wars before too long, and also a Rise of Skywalker podcast. Well, Rise of Skywalker and solo podcast. We're going to do those together. Yeah. Because we never did a solo podcast when we were doing all of our Star Wars stuff. And I also do have a Star Wars fan fiction in the works. The second chapter will certainly be out by the time that this podcast goes up. I'll put a link in the description for that as well. And join us on Discord and support me on Patreon.
Fucking hell, man. Honestly, I still need to read your first chapter because I've just been using it to mask the porn site that I go to when I'm on my phone. But yeah, I will get down to that. And if you want to fucking talk with me about porn, come on our fucking Discord, because that's all I basically do. Fuck.
Oh, goodness.
I didn't even know you were doing a Star Wars fanfic.
Yeah. I mean, I just started it like this week, so.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. I like The Mandalorian. It's enjoyable. Westerns are awesome. Goodbye.
Yep, and see you all next time. Goodbye.
See ya.